My technology savvy is not savvy. Like, it's so bad.
Oh my gosh, me too. If you only knew how many times I like one of our trainers at the gym, his name's Will. I'm like, hey, can you come over here and like show me how to do this? Like, how do I do this on Instagram? Or you know what I mean? Whatever it is.
And it's a constant chase because everything is always, it's like, oh, here's the new version. You're like, I did not get the old version yet.
I know.
Yeah.
This morning I was recording a client and we were working on his routine, you know, for bodybuilding, and his wife's in there. And I'm like, can you record this? Because I'm playing music from my phone, you know? And I'm like, you can't record and play music at the same time. And I'm like, who knew? Like, you thought you should, surely iPhone now should do that. And she goes, I'm pretty sure there's a setting now that you can do that. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not to that point, so I need you to record.
Like, meanwhile, I just need 5 phones. So
I know.
We can get this done.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. I was gonna ask you, or well, I was gonna share this. So Anna had prom last night. Yeah, it was super fun. So she's a junior, and she just like, she loves that and like the dancing, and she just had like such a blast. And it was so great. So
I love it. That's awesome. I can't even believe she's a junior.
It's so crazy how the time flies.
I know. Oh my gosh. Literally every day I think that. I'm like, oh my gosh, time is just flying by. I mean, it's May. It's already May. I can't even believe that. It's nuts.
Yeah. Think about how much time we waste.
I know. Well, here I'm like the world's biggest. I am such a laid back person. I'm like, oh, we've got plenty of time to do that. Plenty. And then before I know it, I'm like, why do you wait till the last minute to always do this? You know, and I'm like, do it to yourself. This is your fault. I mean, whenever I pack for anything, I'm literally like, I will spend all night packing. Never fails. Every single time I go somewhere. I'm like, just wait till the last minute, then I'm up all night. It drives me crazy, but I still do it every time.
I saw this meme one time that says, why do you pack for a trip like you plan on shitting your pants 12 times?
And that's a fact, isn't it? You can never have too many pairs of underwear. No. Never could be.
So I posted this would you rather on my Instagram story, and I'm so curious because Anna and I ended up having a debate after one of my friends messaged me about it. So would you rather wear the same pair of socks for a month or the same pair of underwear for a week?
Socks. All day socks.
Well, okay, so then my friend Kendra, she messaged me. She's like, who TF is gonna pick underwear? Well, so my daughter and I are like, we have the worst stinky, sweaty feet. And I was like, everyone around me would die after like a day. I'm like, it's like acid. It would like, I'm like, this is so bad. It would just burn. And I'm like, you know, like I put on my underwear after I take a shower every day. Like a lot of times I use those little wipey things. I'm like,
yes,
I think I might go with the underwear for
oh my gosh, that's crazy. Hey, I commend you. There's no way I could. I'm like, I sweat way too much. And it's like, I'll sweat, I'll cool off, I'll sweat again. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it is super gross, but also like I wear a thong. So it's like, it's barely wear there anyways. So yeah, they would stand up though on their own.
I know.
It's gross.
Be stale. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, my socks would be stale for sure too after a month of wear. I'd do it though.
Like, what am I getting paid for this?
Exactly.
Like,
well, here's the thing. If I were getting paid a substantial amount of money to wear my underwear for a week, I probably would do it.
Yeah.
If money was on the line. I might not be happy about it, but I might do it.
Yeah, but you know what? It would probably be some schmo who'd be like, probably. And then I want your underwear. And you'd be like,
I know. But then I'd say, but how much?
Right.
How much are you willing to pay?
Yeah. Like, I'd have to think about that. What am I willing to do it for?
Exactly.
Be like something obscenely rude, like $200, and be like,
No.
no.
I'm more like 1,000.
Like, I have a price.
Yeah, $1,000, I think. So, you know, $1,000 good amount.
You have to pick the right price. Depends.
I mean, you got to think like I could get a UTI from that, like, you know.
Yeah. And then you need the money because
then I will exactly.
Yes. Yeah, you know, I didn't think about there is a safety factor involved with wearing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we change our underwear every day.
Exactly. It serves a purpose for sure.
How this is how we wanted to start off.
Whatever. People think these things for sure. So whatever.
Yeah. They're like, what am I willing to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. What else was I gonna say? Oh, I'm on my like to-do list today. We were going to, I have two things I need to talk about first before we go. So Kass sent me some of her Kass jeans. I don't have them on. Yeah. And they're like the stretch, like she makes that brand of jeans. They're really awesome. I'm gonna say that probably, I'm on a cut. So the waist is probably a little tight, but I do love them. They're really awesome. I love them and they're very comfortable. And I think I'm going to talk to her about some sort of collaboration. Like maybe we can do a discount code for the podcast or something. Would be so cool because everybody needs a pair of these jeans.
Yeah.
Squat jeans, basically.
I need those.
Yes.
Or some.
You would.
Are they high rise?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they're super awesome. And they come in, I think, 3 different colors: black, like a indigo type of a blue, and then a light blue. So just like jeans. And I was surprised because they're like, it's like a very stretchy jean material. Like they're thicker than a legging. They're very durable. And yeah, I think that she's got a great product that she's putting out there. So, yeah.
I might have to go give it a go.
Yes, I think you should. I'm going to say like anyone in the fitness industry should go out there and get some. And because otherwise you're always wearing leggings, right? You never wear jeans.
I never wear jeans. I have a pair of mom jeans that I love from American Eagle, but they're, you know, I needed like a good pair of like nice jeans, you know, that I can kind of dress up.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. And okay, so and then Alan Aragon sent me his book, which is going to be backwards on the film, but this is called Flexible Dieting. He has been putting out information and writing stuff for years. He is I believe he's a PhD, and the book is like very it's very reader friendly. Like it's not like but everything is always scientifically backed, and he and his family totally live this healthy lifestyle. And this is perfect for your person who is trying to make sense of diet and nutrition. And I'm really, really excited to read it. So I just wanted to say thanks to him. It doesn't come out until July. So he sent me one of the whatever it's called, you know, before.
You're a VIP.
Totally.
I love it.
So very, very cool. And it was funny because I actually ordered one, so I probably will give that one away to somebody. Like I did the pre-order, and then he was like, "I'm going to send you a copy of my book," and I was like, "Oh."
Just spread the wealth.
Yes, absolutely. You always pay it forward, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so we are going to talk about contest prep for beginners a little bit. I want to cover the Pittsburgh Pro because that was like that rocked. It was super exciting.
Yeah.
And then I want to read something that Meg Challen wrote on her Instagram. We'll end with that because it was a really good post. So you were talking about a checklist, stuff for people that are beginning contest prep because it's contest prep season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about?
Yeah, you know, so I think that's a huge issue, you know. I think it's often overlooked by competitors. And there's all sorts of resources online that will help you to ensure that you're ready to go come show day. You know, there's a long list of things that you have to have in order to even be eligible to compete, you know? And so from my kind of like experience, whenever I'm working certain shows and getting athletes checked in, it kind of amazes me sometimes at kind of how out of the loop some competitors are. And it always seems like the finger is to blame somebody else, you know? And I'm not saying that your coach can't be there to help you. I'm always going to be there to help my competitors to make sure that they are ready. And that might mean that I am there to kind of assist them when it comes into their entry forms and making sure that they're in the right classes, things like that. However, it's always up to you to kind of check off everything. You know, your coach doesn't need to make sure that you're entered in novice bikini or novice bodybuilding or whatever the case may be. It's up to you to make sure that you are you're educating yourself to make sure that you're ready to go come show day. But you know, it starts off an NPC card. You know, NPC card is huge, and you have to have one every calendar year, regardless if you compete one time. If you compete once in 2022 and you are going to compete 3 to 4 times in 2023, you have to purchase a new one, you know? So, and that same applies if you compete in December and you're going to compete again in January, you're going to have to purchase a new NPC card come January 2023. You know, those are the rules, and just basics like that, I think, are often overlooked from competitors, and it's nobody else's fault. It's you got to hold yourself accountable and make sure that you're equipped and knowledgeable in a sense that you have everything ready to go come show day. And that starts from your check-in period, which is usually the night before the show.
Yeah. So a couple of things about the NPC card. One, it used to be that you could buy an NPC card and it would go from until you purchased it. And now is it within a calendar year? So it should. Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of shows will be selling an NPC card. They have that table at the show. So you can wait until the show day to get it, but you have to make sure. What is the cost of that now? Do you know?
So, gosh, I don't know what the cost is now. I'm going to make up a number. I think it's $150. It's somewhere in that range. It might be $120 to $150. It seems like it kind of varies a little bit, but yes, it's, you know, and it's super, super easy now to go and join the NPC online. You know, back in the day, you used to have to like send it in via mail, and you have to fill out all this information at the show to purchase your NPC card. Times have changed, and it's really, really user friendly now. You can go to npcnewsonline.com and you just click join the NPC. You can go on, fill out all of your information, and your NPC card is verified right then and there. You can screenshot it on your phone. And I think something too with the NPC card, every show that you do, you're going to have that NPC card. So make sure it's in a place that's readily available to you, whether you screenshot it and put it in your notes of your phone or put it in a file on your phone that you can just pick it up and show them. That's the first thing that anybody's going to ask you whenever you are checking into a show, right? They can't get you taken care of in any other aspect until they verify that NPC card. So first and foremost, for any competitor, man, woman, doesn't matter, you have to have that NPC card first.
That's really good. I totally forgot about that. You know, I know when you go to a show, you're like, oh, I got to get one, but I totally forgot about that, and that you do need it for, and you don't have to say like what show you're doing. So as long as you know that you're competing, you just apply for that at the, you know, within a reasonable time of that, you know, I know I bought one year that I didn't end up competing, and you don't get that money back either. So, but
you know, yeah. And here's the thing, the same thing applies for me. I have to buy my pro card every year, you know, and yeah, I don't know, I get my years confused. 2020, I don't know. I purchased my pro card and I didn't end up competing that year. So it's not like I got a refund, you know, it's kind of how it is. So if you purchase the NPC card and you don't compete, it is what it is. You're just gonna have to take the loss on it, you know.
Is your pro card, does that cost the same or is it more?
It's more. I think it was like $250. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you still have to pay for one. You know.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't realize all the expenses that add up to competing. You know, it's funny because with Anna doing prom this week, I said, you know what, you need to remember it, kind of jokingly, but kind of not. I'm like, next year when you do prom, you're going to need to have $1,000 saved because, you know, it was like, she found a dress for $300. It was 30% off. She bought shoes. They were $70. She went to get her nails done. It was over $60. She had an appointment to get her hair done, and that was $60. And she had to buy her prom ticket, and it was $50. So it's very much the same. There's all these things that are, you know, and for competing, then you have your tanning, you have your makeup, you have your hair, everything. And most things you can't skimp on or do yourself because you'll stand out on stage as someone who went like a jankety route rather than using what is available at the show or somebody professional, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's rare cases where I will ever tell a competitor, oh yeah, you'll be fine to do your own hair and makeup. And those are people that are seasoned and they're truly familiar, because there is a difference between contest makeup and just true everyday makeup. There's tons of people that have a great look about them and they can wear everyday makeup and it looks fantastic. There's a difference. I would be really not in a good place if I had to do my own makeup on stage, you know. But and here's another sense is you work so hard to diet down for that event. And I get it that it is an added expense. It's just something else that you have to pay for, but it does make a difference and make that day all about you. The less stress that you have come show day, the best possible position you'll be in, and the better of an experience you'll have. You know what I mean? Let somebody else deal with your hair and makeup. Let somebody else deal with your tan. If there's any sort of issues, those individuals are there and they're equipped to be able to kind of roll with the punches. So if there's an issue with your hair, they're going to be there to fix it. If there's an issue with your tan, they're going to be there to fix it, right? Every person that is working these events, whether it's the makeup sponsors, tanning sponsors, expediters, promoters, their goal is to ensure that every competitor has a good experience, right? So they're there to help you use those resources. If you're competing, don't be afraid to reach out. If you don't know who to reach out to one of the staff members, an expediter, you know, they'll help you. They will know who to direct you to answer those questions.
Yeah, even I don't know about the shows that you've worked with, but I know that the show promoters are available. Even, you know, oh my gosh, the person who owns this show and running this show has made his email or phone number available for the competitors to be able to contact them if they have any questions about, you know, especially like hotels and that type of thing. You know, and it goes back to, again, not skimping. I know a lot of people think like they can save money here and there, but the goal of peak week and show day is to minimize your stress, because the less stressed you are, the more recovered and healed you are, the better you're going to look on stage, because that stress shows up in you holding water and you being tense and you not looking comfortable. Like it's, you know, worry when you are so depleted and lean really shows up on your physique when you step on stage.
100% it does. And just like you said, I think it's really kind of crucial to touch on peak week. There's no like hidden science or remedy or quick fix for going into peak week. Yes, you should be peaking, but at that point, you should be already dieted down. So peak week should be a breeze. You shouldn't be doing anything at that point. Your training is not going to be abnormally intense. Your cardio is probably going to be a little bit more mild. You know, you don't want to cause any sort of inflammation or soreness in your joints and muscles at that point. So you should be in a good spot. It should be kind of just finishing at that point, getting things done. If you're female and you're getting your hair done, your nails done, things like that, that's fun to me. I like peak week because I'm like, oh, I get to get ready for everything. You know, don't sweat that. That should be easy at that point. You're coasting. You should be coasting.
Yeah. And if you're trying to crash into it, you probably needed a few more weeks. Or if your coach is doing all
100%.
these, we're going to water load, drop water, do, you know, these types of things are like, yeah, this is like, you're not ready at all if you're trying to pull these magical maneuvers to try to, you can't just lose body fat right at the end. Like that's not going to happen. So being comfortable with saying, you know what, either I'm going to step on stage like this, maybe it's a first time experience, do the best I can, recognize I probably should have had a few more weeks, or you can put off doing that show if you want to, you feel like, you know, another 4 more weeks of dieting is going to make you look better. It's entirely up to you. And you don't have to be married to a show, you know, unless you sent in your your registration or whatever, and you are definitely doing that show. But I mean, sometimes people do that and then they pick another one, you know, 4 or 5 weeks out from that as well, and do that as well. The first one is just really have fun. You know, don't be too concerned about what the outcome is going to be. You don't even know if you like it yet. Just enjoy the experience, right? Like you said.
And that's huge. And I use myself as an example in that regard. I think we all compete to win, right? Who doesn't want to win? I think we all obviously do. However, anytime I compete, I want to enjoy the experience. So, I mean, from the moment I'm traveling to that area to compete, from the check-ins, the moments backstage, you know, that's what you're going to remember. Yeah, I'll remember, oh, I placed whatever it is that I happen to place at that show. But I don't want to be so bummed out for the fact that I was so stressed out and in my head about whatever it was that I was in my head about at that given time, that I didn't enjoy the show. My mind was consumed elsewhere, and I didn't even get an opportunity to truly enjoy making those memories, right? Because those are what you're going to remember. You know, I, again, remember my placements at shows, but I remember the time that you spend on stage is so minor compared to everything leading up to it. You know, chances are you're going to be backstage that day. Show day is going to be a long day. So you're getting up early, getting your hair and makeup done at like 3, 4 a.m., which is common. You know, you might be getting up that early to get your hair and makeup done. And then it's an all day event. Let's say the show's not over until 10, maybe even later, depending on the size of the show. It's truly all day for a brief moment on stage. So enjoy everything. Enjoy the experience you have when you're getting your hair and makeup done with all the girls that are in there, those competitors. Learn them, you know, get to know them. Enjoy the athletes backstage, share memories or experiences with one another. And then whenever you get that moment to shine on stage, shine. Yeah. You know, smile. That's the moment that you've been working so hard for. So walk away from the show. You may not have won, and that's okay, but walk away knowing, you know what? I had a great time. The staff was great. The competitors were great. It was just a fun show. And I want to do this again, you know, or I want to do another one. I want to continue on, or whatever the case may be. I want to do the show again next year, you know, but just make sure you're enjoying it. Don't step away and think, I didn't even have a good time because I was so stressed out, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, people talk about bodybuilding being a very selfish sport or being a very one person sport, but a lot of us are involved in that, knowing that, but also for this community that is formed. And that happens when you compete, because you get to connect with these other women, and everybody, it's a shared experience, because even though everybody's story is different, we're all sharing like this individual or this community type of experience. Yeah. Everybody knows what it's like going through that. And so connecting with, you know, the other women backstage so that, you know, you'll see them at the next shows or whatever. I think that's really important. And it leads me to how you can learn more about competing. I think a lot of women, you know, one, I know you talked about before, have never even been to a show before, which kind of blows my mind if you've never gone to a show and you're actually, you know, thinking about competing, maybe from what you've seen online, but also using the sources that are online, the resources of, like, you should be following the top competitors in all the categories to see how they're living, how they're training, what they're doing. And they a lot of times post stuff on their stories about going through the whole process of show day. So it's such a resource, and it always, again, kind of blows my mind when you talk to people thinking about competing or competing on show day, and they don't know who Lorelei Chap is, or they don't know who Brooke Walker is, or they don't know, it's like, these are people that could be helping you learn just by following their lifestyle and what they're doing. So use those resources. Think about even who you're following on Instagram. Are you like, if this is a goal, you want to immerse yourself and learn as much as you can about bodybuilding. So you need to be following bodybuilders.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of times a good starting point is just like you said, go watch a show. It doesn't matter. I mean, just go watch it, because seeing it happen and seeing photos of it online are two totally different things. So, and here's the thing, you might go and watch a bodybuilding show and might think, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And that's okay if you think that, but you might go and you might see it and you might be like, oh yeah. And you might gain interest in different divisions. Say you happen to see this bikini competitor online and you just think that that's okay. You might not even happen to know what division she's in, but you go and you see, oh my gosh, but look at these figure girls. Wow. So you might be motivated to go a different route in terms of division at that point, so by all means, watch a show. And there's tons of different resources as well. Find a local event that's happening near you, go to it, see it. And prejudging and finals are two totally different events too. So that's something to be mindful of as well. And it might vary show to show based off of your format, but for the most part, every show is going to be very similar in how it's ran. So just be mindful of that. And you know what? I tell people, watch videos, go online, YouTube a prejudging, an NPC prejudging show, YouTube NPC finals, for whatever particular division. There's tons of different resources out there. Educate yourself. I can promise you can never know too much, there's always more to learn.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say too that, I think there's a lot of pressure now with social media out there for people to look like a pro level competitor the first time they compete. And when you look at all of us when we started, there was definitely, at the very least, improvements that needed to be made. If not, literally your face palming, like, I don't know what I was thinking, but you were thinking, I want to give this a shot. I want to see if I like it. And no, like, you didn't do your prep the most professional and perfect way, because you have to learn how to do that. And I think a lot of people are afraid to like, they're supposed to know everything and skip that learning process of years of showing up and improving, when this is what bodybuilding is. You start with, what a lot of us were, just an athletic physique, and stepped on stage without having a whole lot of background of training or whatever. Obviously there's exceptions to the rules, but if you look at, especially look at Dana Lynn Bailey or look at Juliana Malacarne, they looked good, but they didn't look anything like the finished product of years of competing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you said that, because that's actually something that drives me crazy, in several different regards. I apply the concept, okay, well, if you're looking at some of the top professionals in the world, and I'm not even saying from a bodybuilding standpoint, just saying in general, any pro sport, whether it's basketball or football or soccer or whatever, those people that are the best, they didn't just show up one day and say, you know what, I'm here to make the US soccer team. That's not the case. They started and have probably worked for years to get to that point, right? Lots of training days, things like that. Same applies with bodybuilding. So you don't look at the people that are your current champions in Olympia that are the best in the world, and they didn't just start there. They didn't just show up and say, hey, I'm here to be crowned the Miss Olympia. You know what I mean? They've worked, and it takes time. And to be honest, I think looking back at like my personal journey, I love that. I love to look back at my very first show and see, it makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, your hair looks ridiculous. Your tan looks ridiculous. Like my face is so dark and my hair is like white. My posing is stupid, but I love it because you know what? I think back at that first show and I had such a great time. I mean, it was a good event. I loved every moment of it. And I mean, that truly kind of set me up for success in the long run because I wanted to continue to do it, but that's a part of my journey. I love that. If I hadn't have done that, I probably would have never stepped on stage, and there's some competitors that I see that are 100% good enough to go and step on stage right now, but they're holding themselves back because they feel like they need to go and get nationally qualified, then go on to a pro qualifier and get that pro card, and then go on and step on stage at the pro level and then go to the Olympia, and those are all great goals for sure. Have those goals. I'm not saying don't, but keep in mind, you need to get to that. You need to do all the steps in between those in order to progress to that level. So don't be afraid to step on stage.
It's like, when you get a lifestyle client and they're a little bit hesitant to send you their beginning progress pictures, and you're like, I know you would love to send me pictures of where you want to be, but this is where you are right now. And we need to acknowledge this and accept that you're going to be starting somewhere in order to get somewhere else. You wouldn't need me if you were at your goal weight right now. And you're going to be so happy when you look back and see, there's a lot of encouragement that comes from just comparing your first picture when, either you thought you looked okay, or you were like, oh, I wasn't happy at all with how I looked. And then seeing the improvements, you want those improvements again. I mean, this is what this sport is about. It's body building. It's getting better. It's improving every time that you step on stage. So you definitely have to start somewhere, and it might not be where you want to be, but you can only assess where you are if you're honest with yourself that that's where you are,
Absolutely. You got to start. In order to get where you want to be, you have to start. So just take it one day at a time. And here's one thing that I will always tell people is don't monitor your progress with somebody else. Don't compare it, right? Everybody's progression is different. And here's the sad reality of it. You might see somebody that they progress rapidly and it sucks. And maybe their effort is smaller than yours. And you know what? It does. I get it. It sucks that it's that way for some people, but it is what it is. Don't compare yourself to anybody. Don't. It's you are your own person, and that individual is their own person. So you just cut that. Don't even do it. And it's one thing to admire physiques. There's tons of people that I see and I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks amazing. I wish I could get my back to look like that. But I'm not comparing myself to her. You get what I'm saying? So you can cheer people on and tell them that they look good, but just understand that your journey is going to be different than their journey. And that's okay. It's okay. It's your journey. Your progress might be a little bit slower. It might be a little bit quicker. And that is what it is. But enjoy every moment of it and don't let that hinder you.
Yeah. And you said as a positive, this is a sport that it's really easy for us to admire and support other women if we allow it to be something beyond ourselves. I feel like, if you can look at somebody who knows how to sing and be inspired to do your best in your life, regardless of if singing is important to you, then you have a really great perspective on other people following their dreams and getting to their goals. And you're going to be able to apply that to yourself in whatever you do. So if you look at other people who are progressing, whether it's in unbelievably rapid manner or whatever, and just admire, maybe look at some of the things they're doing, see if you can learn something from that. But like you said, I think it's super important to recognize that everybody's background is different. Everybody has different access to different coaches, training styles. Maybe they've figured out what training style works better for them, and you're still trying to figure that out. Genetics, epigenetics make a huge difference. You have always had an athletic background. You started powerlifting basically when you were 12 years old. So you have this tremendous base that someone who's never competed or never done any athletics before doesn't have that. So you can't, it's just like life. You can't compare yourself to somebody, even if you're the same age or whatever as them, because you don't know what it took for them to get to where they are. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What are some of the other things that you were thinking about as far as like a checklist goes?
Okay, so we'll go from like the beginning, right? So the NPC card, we kind of went over that. And like we said, you typically can purchase that at the show, or they might just kind of go online and do it. But regardless, have that NPC card readily available. Know your divisions, right? So know if you're in a class that is getting measured, know your height, obviously. But here's the thing, keep in mind that whatever they take your height at that show, that's your height. So like if you pull out your ID and you're like, well, my driver's license says I'm 5'6", you know, there's different factors. I don't know. And here's things, whenever you diet, you actually probably might shrink a little bit. There's less inflammation around your joints, but whatever. It's sometimes you have people that are like, well, I'm not that, I'm taller than that. Then you have them step out. I'm like, well, you're not, you know? So just familiarize yourself with that. Same thing with weight classes. You know, it doesn't matter if you weighed yourself that morning and you were in your weight class. If you go into check-ins and you weigh on that scale and you're over your weight class, there's no arguing that. So educate yourself. Make sure you know what you need to weigh in at or what your height is. Know what division you are in. Know the differences between those divisions. And if you don't know, ask somebody. Use resources. Get online. You can learn. NPC News Online again has different criteria for all of the different divisions. So there's no reason to not know. You know, educate yourself. You are spending so much money and you have invested so much time into the prep to make it there. Educate yourself. I
was going to interject one thing that I think people don't always realize, and this is what you said with going to watch a show and seeing the different divisions. There is specific posing, specific suits, and specific shoes for each division, and you have to know what you need, because you can't wear a figure suit for bikini, and you know, certain divisions don't need shoes, which we love.
Yeah. Those are good ones. Yeah. And that's huge. And understand that, again, I'm always kind of like pointing people back to npcnewsonline.com, because there's all of these rules there that we're going to help you. Like I said, everybody wants a competitor to have a good experience. You know, at the end of the day, we want the sport to continue to grow and evolve, and it has done that. But you want to make sure that everybody's having a good experience. For the most part, you want everybody to be a pleased customer, you know, that way the business continues to grow and to thrive. And the better it does, the better everybody else does. You know, it gives us more opportunities within the bodybuilding community to grow ourselves at the pro level, or if you're going to stay at the amateur level, you just have more opportunities, you know. Something that's huge is, you know, that there's different federations. So like if you are competing in the NPC for your first time and you have competed in a different federation, understand that the criteria might be different, you know, and that's from division to division. That could be your posing. There's tons of times that I've seen competitors go on stage and they're posing and they're in a figure for their NPC figure, and they go out and they do their individual routine and it's something totally different, or they think that they're doing a T-walk, or, you know, that's not in the NPC. So familiarize yourself with that and make sure that you understand the difference between these different federations, because there's different organizations, obviously, that are going to have different requirements. So make sure you understand that. Posing is huge too. At these local shows, depending on the size of the show, a promoter might give you a little bit more stage time, because the show's a little bit smaller. So they're not really stressed for time. You know, and that's great, but understand, if you go out and you've had all this time to pose and then you've had a great experience there, and then you go on to another show that might be a little bit bigger, there are rules in terms of timing for your posing routines, right? So if you go out on stage and you get mad because you're like, oh my gosh, they only gave me 15 seconds to pose. Well, there are rules for that. So it's not that they were trying to rush you off stage, but it could have been a huge event where time is an issue. So we got to make sure that each competitor has their allotted amount of time. So educate yourself on that, right? If you are competing at a big show and there's a lot of hard bodies, you're probably not going to be able to go out and pose for every class that you've crossed over in, and you're not going to have 60 seconds, right? And I kind of am like pro, like you see a lot of competitors that mimic like their favorite pros posing,
Yes.
you know, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's wrong, but you can look at a pro and say, oh, I love that pose on them. And maybe if you want to mimic that particular pose or, you know, see if it looks good on your physique, yeah, do it. But understand that a pro does have all the time in the world. So they could be out there for a full 60 seconds posing. You do not have that time. So pick the poses that work for you, the really good ones, hit them and get off stage.
It's tough because, you know, people will practice a routine and then when you have the athletes meeting, they'll be like, well, bikini girls, all we want is a front and a back pose. And you're like, I did this whole walking routine and I made it and it's 30 seconds long and they want to see you for 10 or 15 seconds on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough, but you have to know how to be able to crop your posing routine for when you walk out there as well. And I'm glad that you made that point because on the amateur level, they are a lot quicker to really, you get like 15 seconds and they will literally say, you're done, get off stage. And you don't want to be that person who's basically being yelled at to get off stage because they don't care anymore. They want to see the next person that comes up.
And it is huge in posing. And that's where I'm telling people, educate yourself. So if you've been working with a coach and you guys have worked on this routine, and I'm not saying a coach shouldn't understand the rules. I do believe that a coach should know, you know, however, at the end of the day, if this coach has prepped you for this bikini show and you are following Ashley Cotswater's routine to a max and you're doing everything that she's doing, understand that that's not probably going to be allowed come show day, you know, and don't blame your coach. I'm not saying that your coach should have known better. However, it's up to you to do your research. Yeah. Go and look, see what the rules are. How long can you be on stage? All of those resources are readily available for you. There's really no excuse, you know, there's truly not. Obviously, for the most part, like I said, there will be maybe smaller or insignificant changes come from show to show, but for the most part, your format of the show should be relatively similar from show to show. So it's going to be ran very similar as it should. But if you have a smaller show, they might give you a little bit more stage time, and that's great if they do. That's totally awesome. Use that, you know, use that to gain that experience, to kind of work out any kinks that you do have in your posing, get those jitters out, whatever. But just know that if you're going on to the national level at some point, you're not going to have 60 seconds to pose on stage. I promise.
They are, I think, especially like we had a show that was near here that has it's not even a national qualifier, our local show, right? So they're super charitable with the athletes, just letting them, you know, they kind of joke with them when they're getting them out on stage, just making sure everybody's comfortable. It's a really great first show, you know, and I remember when I did that and I was like, okay, they said, oh, you get 60 seconds to do your posing routine. And they just kept playing my music. And I was up there for like, so I was like, oh, I had it like, I was done. Yeah. And then they're like, they still were playing my music. So I'm like, I guess I'll just freestyle pose and I'll keep going, you know? And so like, I ended up doing like a quad shake and stuff, which doesn't have anything to do, you know, with women's physique, but you know, I was up there and then I took a bow and I walked off stage. So they didn't even ever stop my music. But that would never happen at a national level show. You know, that was obviously like a really great memory, but yes. So there's something to doing those very small local shows just to get your feet wet and be comfortable and not have to worry about really what the outcome is, because they're wanting to make sure that the athlete just has a really good time and wants to move on but so many people, like you said, are like, oh, I want to win this national qualifier, and then I want to go on to nationals, and then I want to go on to get my pro card, and then I want to win a pro show, and then I want to go on to the Olympia, and that's all going to happen within a year or something like that. And it's just like,
I've heard that so many different times. You only
with the posing, I was going to say that your best bet is to come up with something that's only going to take 15 seconds. Like you said, pick your best poses. And if you get your front pose and your back pose, knowing that that might be all that you can do, if you're given more time, then you can sort of freestyle into a side pose or whatever it is. But if you keep it really simple, you could just repeat that again. So it's better to have it concise with your best poses than to just be like all, sort of willy-nilly. And I want to emphasize too, for people to hold that pose when they get into a pose. Yeah. You see a lot of times it almost looks like somebody's dancing or walking around because they don't pause. Like you want to pause, like somebody's going to take your picture when you hit that pose, because that's what the judges, otherwise they don't really lock into anything. They just kind of see you walking around.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If you have 15 seconds and you're on stage, you should not have 6 or 7 poses that you're trying to hit within that 15-second time frame. So hit those 2 poses that are strong poses. Give those poses their moment, right? You want people to look at you and be like, oh, wow, she looks great. Hold that pose, right? And then move into your next pose, hold it, and then curtsy, file off, right? You're going to get judged in your comparison rounds, right? So make sure that's when you need to look better than the person that's standing alongside you. You know what I mean? So, and just think about this, the more you move on stage, the more you move around, the more you're probably going to see some flaws, So hit a pose, stick it, hold, get off stage.
You want it to be memorable, right? It's like if somebody put flashcards in front of you and flashed 10 flashcards, you wouldn't remember. But if somebody put like a red dot and a black square, you'd be like, oh, I remember. Absolutely. I remember those 2 things. So, I mean, it's really the same thing. They're either going to remember confusion or like some really solid poses that you had. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on too, there is criteria for each category. And a lot of times people get really caught up on like what body fat percentage do I need to be at in order to compete in each category? And body fat percentage, one, just cannot be accurately measured. So whatever you think or whatever somebody says they are, it's really an irrelevant number. What you need to focus on is what your physique looks like in order to fit into that category. And you might not really be able to put numbers on it. You just have to keep dieting and looking and seeing if your physique is getting to the level of leanness that you need to be for a specific category. That always bothers me when people, because you can't, you can give a range, but if you can't accurately measure body fat percentage, it's not going to really be helpful. Like essentially you need to get all the body fat off.
You need to come in as lean as you possibly can. Yeah. But that's such a valid point. And I always will use myself as an example for that, because I never test my body fat. And it to me, it's more of like a mental thing, because I don't want to obsess about a number, but I know if I'm lean or I know if I'm not lean, you know what I mean? So, obviously whenever I'm in contest shape, I know whenever I'm like kind of at my prime in that moment, I know that my body fat's low, but I don't know what it is, but I know it's low, and then whenever I'm not, I know that obviously it's not competition lean, But here's the thing too, and I think it's really important, is you will see competitors, some people, different things work for their physiques, right? So you might see a little bit of a harder bikini competitor, right? For the most part, you shouldn't really see a lot of hard bikini bodies, but there might be that one girl that it works for her. She's a little bit harder. She might have a little bit more muscle, but it works for her. Then you might see somebody that might be a little bit softer, but that works for their body. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you gave somebody, okay, you need to be within 8 to 10% body fat, and you have two individuals stand next to each other and they're both 8 to 10% body fat, they could look totally different.
Yeah. Well, like Shelby Starnes always says, you're only as lean as your fattest body part.
100%.
And a lot of women will need to get quote unquote a little too hard up top in order to get that body fat off, the last bit off their, especially like glutes and hamstrings. And I mean, people hold lower back, some people it's abs. Yeah, so you can't really, all you can do is continue with that dieting process, with that, that prep process in order to try to get to where you need to be in the amount of time that you gave yourself. And if you don't, like I said before, you either know next time you need to give yourself more time, or you decide not to do that show and give yourself more time, because it will come off. It just needs more time.
Yes, absolutely. It will come off. And you got to think you are pushing your body to a point past its comfort zone, right? So your body is always going to try to balance back out into a happy medium, right? Your body wants to be balanced. So you're pushing it past that. So your body at first, it might try to fight you a bit because it's uncomfortable. It doesn't want to be in a state of discomfort. So absolutely, you might have to kind of keep pushing the envelope, and it might be frustrating, but you got to keep going. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Especially for this sport, it's not overall health and general wellness. So you got to be mindful of that. And I think something too is, and it's huge, and I like blame social media for everything, but I think it's social media is so much more readily available for people now, and you can see somebody's journey, and they might have a coach, and they might be doing this like every week. They get cheat meals leading up to a show, and that's fine. There's people obviously that do fit that criteria for sure, but then you have people that, man, they're dieting for 20 weeks and they might not have gotten one cheat meal, not one. So you can't look at an individual and say, well, so-and-so gets cheat meals every dang week. I haven't gotten a cheat meal at all. My coach is doing something wrong. No. That's not the case. I'm not saying that some coaches might not know their stuff for sure, but take a step back and look at yourself. You know what I mean? If you are not lean enough and you're not in shape, there's no reason why you need to have a cheat meal, and there's some people that I've coached and they do get cheat meals, and I'm like, it almost makes me mad because I'm like, oh, they get more cheat meals than I ever did. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that is what it is,
Yeah. Well, and
go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you can't judge your progress with somebody else's. And that's from like a food standpoint, whatever,
Well, and this first prep is really just that experience of getting to know. I see a lot of people, like, I can see it. And sometimes you just have to go through it and learn yourself that their body fat is too high for them to begin a contest prep. And a lot of people need to lose some body fat in order to get to a spot and hang out there for a little bit before they start a contest prep, because otherwise you might a year, you don't want your contest prep to be longer than 20 or 25 weeks. And it's just calories are going to get too low because you can only just keep continuing down that slide. And what you might need to do is maybe step on stage not looking how you wanted to be, or like I said before, do a bit of 4 to 6 months of dieting, hang out there for a little bit, make sure metabolism is good and healthy before you go into a contest prep. I even had this in 2017 when I started my prep for nationals. I was 3 weeks out. I still probably had, I don't know, I want to say 7 pounds to lose. And my calories were I was cycling between around sometimes 900 something and 1100. So I was just like, for me personally, I wasn't willing to keep going lower in calories or keep increasing. It was just like, okay, back to the drawing board. Next time, I got to make sure that I don't have this much body fat to lose in order to step on stage. And and I think you've said this before too, nobody cares if you don't complete your, what you set out to do, especially if it wasn't going to work out for you, and I could have picked another show and kept going also, but we had a family vacation in Mexico that we were doing the week after. I had expected to step on stage and then go to Mexico with my family. And it's just like, sometimes things just don't work out, but you have to assess what you're willing to do, but you also want to set up a best case scenario so that you're not 6-8 weeks at 1,000 calories. Like that's going to be very, very difficult. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen or people don't have to do it, but, you want to be as healthy as possible going in there so that it is as easy as possible for as long as possible before, you get into I'd say around 4 weeks out is when you're just like
miserable.
Yes. I want to die.
Yep. That's about what I'm like. Okay. I'm just surviving at this point. I got to make it like hour by hour. It always seems like that 8-week time frame is when I like to really start to see that I'm kind of hitting that wall a little bit. And then my body will acclimate and adjust. And then at 6 weeks, it's the same thing. I kind of hit a wall again. Then at 4 weeks, it's like a permanent wall.
Yeah.
Like it's brutal, but
daily. You're doing it, you're day by day. The number of brain fog incidents that happen, you're empty up here.
I just love it. I've got this girl and I love her to death and she cracks me up. She's competing at Junior USA's this, next weekend. And she looks amazing, but she's like, my brain's just not working. You know what I mean? I'm like, girl, I get it. I know. Don't worry. Like, we're just going to make it through this last little bit and you'll be smooth sailing, but it's kind of unreal how foggy your brain is. I mean, I could just hardly function. Literally.
This is where you find your keys in the freezer and you're like, where did it's a constant, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I'm just here. My body's here, but my mental state is not. So
yeah, which is funny how people are always like, oh, I like they think they could walk around looking like that all the time. And you're like, you're just a hot mess.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like, there's no way I could. No way.
Well, and you feel like this is the time when you even dread your workouts because you have to, like, how many times did you sit in your car outside the gym for, like, I did that. I'll do for 45 minutes. Like, you got to do another workout.
Yeah. You get to the point where you're so depleted and you're asking your body to do more, but you're giving your body less, and it is brutal because you can't get a pump, you're flat, your strength is down, your joints hurt because you're dry at that point. It's just like simple things that are easier for you to do in like previous months and weeks are abnormally challenging for you, that given moment. But from a mental standpoint, you just got to find some sort of way to kind of get through it. I always tell myself, I'm like, you're fine. I mean, if you only knew, I'm like, you got this. In my head, I'm like, you were okay. This does not define you. You are completely fine. You're not losing muscle. You know what I mean? Like it is, and this is like daily that I'm going through this like same kind of like motivational spiel in my head to get myself through this workout, and sometimes some workouts are better than others. And some it's like, I'm just doing all I can just to get through it, but it is what it is. I assure you doing something is better than not doing anything. You know what I mean? Unless it's like a planned off day, but just getting through there. And if you're kind of just going through the motions that given day and doing what you can, that's okay. Yeah. Cut yourself a little grace. You will be fine.
Yeah. You have to be compassionate towards yourself. Sleep will be awful. You will be hungry. Mm-hmm. You will be very food focused. This is how you know that you are in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, don't let, and people have great preps and great experiences, yes, but don't fooled in a sense that you're probably going to be tired. Your body might hurt, you know, you are going to be probably in an extreme deficit. And again, I'll say uncomfortable. So understand that's kind of a part of it, you know. Just understand that, yeah, you probably look really good though. You might not feel good, but you probably look pretty good.
I would say make sure that you have a coach that understands about your safety as far as training goes. I think back when I was competing, I don't think it was nearly as big of a thing as people talk about now, making sure that you're swapping out your more dangerous exercises as you get closer to being in this state that we're talking about, because, you know, I know we always preached like, you don't need to be doing your strength exercises, your 1-rep maxes and those types of things. Anything that's going to be dangerous when your body is so compromised is a really bad idea. And at this point, you know, people always think that you're creating this physique during contest prep, and you're not. You're revealing what you have already built. All you're trying to do is keep the muscle, and you want to have the least amount of stimulus possible to keep that lean tissue during this prep time. So yeah, you don't need to, you know, if deadlifts are going to be something that you think are going to, you know, they're very exhausting. It might take, you know, might be a risk of injury for you at 6 weeks out. You're going to maybe want to swap those out for dumbbell RDLs or something like that. So yeah, make sure that your coach is knowledgeable about the way that you train and what your body is going to work better, how your body is going to work better as you get closer into those dark days.
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe them. Dark days.
They're going to be foggy. You're going to be, and I wonder if this is why when you look back at you're like, why did I not, you know, you look small. You always think, oh, I look so small. Cause you're like, you're just flat and like, you're like, I looked so good. Why did I think I looked so bad?
I know. And that's always a good idea to have a coach. You know what I mean? Because it's just a set of eyes that is in the right state of mind. You know what I mean? Because it is normal and common for yourself to look at yourself in the mirror and look at photos and think, I'm not on track. I don't look good. You know what I mean? I'm not lean enough. And sometimes maybe there are exceptions, and maybe you're truly not lean enough. Maybe you're not on track. But if you truly are on track, once you get done with the show, you'll look back at those photos and you're going to say, you know what? I was lean enough. I remember looking at that photo and thinking, I'm screwed. You know, I remember in 2017, looking at my photos, it's the night before the Arnold, and I'm looking at my progress photos and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do good. I'm like, you look like crap, you know? And I'm like, sitting there telling Jose this, and I'm telling Anthony, and he's like, you were fine, you know? And at that point I was like, well, I'm here, so I got to compete. It's not like I'm not going to show up, you know? And I did well, you know, at that given time. That was the best physique that I'd ever brought on stage. But I very clearly remember thinking, oh, I'm go ahead and save last place for me, because I'm going to not do good. But you know what I mean? I just wasn't in the state of mind. I was like being very, very critical of myself. And I was seeing a person that my eyes at that point could not see clearly, you know?
Well, this is why we have progress pictures, because even sometimes, you know, I'll have this with clients too, and it could be just lifestyle clients that it's like, well, this was you a month ago. Let me do a little side by side for you, because you're only down, you know, 1.5 pounds on the scale and you think nothing happened. You absolutely look totally different. And sometimes if you can just, you know, cut the head off and be like, if you looked at this person, which is you, can you see the difference between these two pictures? So yeah, I think pictures are going to be, you know, obviously use the scale, because the number is usually going to go down on the scale. But for women especially, you get to a point where it's like, you know, 0.5 pound, 0.3 pounds a week, you know, a week or something like that. The changes are happening in the pictures. That's what you're going to see. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
All right. What else? Anything else?
I think suits are big, right? Yeah. thing that you should talk about. I always recommend for any competitor to have 2 suits whenever you're competing. Have 2. And if you are in a division that requires heels, have 2 pairs of shoes. And you never always prep for the worst. You want to be over prepared and ready. If you have a malfunction where you're with your suit, where your connector busts and, if you don't have another suit, you might be freaking out. Whereas if you have another suit, that might not be your first choice, but you still have a secondary suit that if you have to use, it is there. Same thing applies with shoes. I literally have had a girl in line to compete and her strap broke on her shoe.
Yeah.
Right. But she had another set of heels. So she was able to go run and put them on real quick and go on stage. So prep for those things. I get it that it's another added expense, but if you can, I would prep for that, as far out as possible within that show. That way you're ready for it, Here's another thing. There are suits that I would say are not tasteful, and keep in mind that a promoter or a judge or an expediter, they can tell you that your suit is not acceptable and they might pull you off stage. So I would always have a secondary suit in that regard. I would bring your suit. Sometimes some shows will have you bring your suit at check-ins. Some shows are kind of like steering away from that, because you can say that your suit was cleared at check-ins and then come show day, you're wearing a different suit or whatever. But just be mindful of that they can tell you that a suit is not acceptable, so if you're in that kind of situation, tough luck, you better have another suit. And be mindful of that. You'll see different suit companies that have different styles, like more coverage, less coverage, and just know that every physique is different. So just because some girl is wearing like a micro cut bottom and she can wear that and it fits her glutes, okay, she might be able to, but you might not be able to. You might need more of like a standard figure cut suit. You know what I mean? So just know the differences, familiarize yourself. There's tons of companies that can make you 2 suit bottoms. So if you're unsure, maybe get two bottoms if you can, and if you can afford that. Because it does happen, it does happen. Those rules are enforced for a reason. So you don't be that person. Always be overly prepared. Always be overly prepared, right? Have a suit that fits you. It doesn't have to be completely blinged out. That what matters most is that it's a good fit and a good color, so yeah. If it fits you, great, that's what matters. And if you can't afford all of those extra stones and bling, that's okay. It's completely fine. I promise you, if your cut fits you, it's going to show off your physique, and that's what you need.
Yeah. It's good to have another pair of shoes, just like, because you practice in them a lot too. So one might be a little bit more dingy and worn, but then at least you have a pair to fall back on because those straps, if they break, there's no fixing it at all. It's not like a suit where you could maybe safety pin it or something like that.
No. And things like those, that happens. It happens more often than you would think, so just be prepped for it. Like that way it's not a big deal. Don't think, oh my gosh, my shoe busted, I don't have another pair of shoes. And then you're begging like girl competitors, you're like, can I wear your shoes real quick and I'll give them back to you? Just be prepped for it. Something that is huge too is typically, for the most part, you're always going to have an athlete meeting the day of the show before the show starts. And I encourage you to be there, be at that meeting, because they're going to go over things. They're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions. They're probably going to give you a general idea of formatting for the show. So take advantage of that. There's so many cases where athletes miss that meeting and they might have missed their class, and had they been there for that meeting, they would have understood this is the format of the show. This is how it's running, the running order. And once you miss that class, you're probably not going to get rejudged for it, so no. Stay backstage. Don't be that person that misses your class. It happens all the time. There's always somebody.
In those well-run shows, and when there's a lot of competitors, like you said, they're running the classes out there, they're quickly making them do their turns, and then they're shuffling them off stage. So you might think, oh, I have all of figure to go, I have all of men's physique to go before I'm up, or whatever it is. and it's going to happen within a half hour because they're running people by so quickly. You think, oh, I had 2 hours. If you miss it, you're scratched, like you're done.
There's no going back at that point, you know? And here's the thing, just look at it from a competitor's point of view that was backstage. That girl was backstage. She was where she needed to be at that given time. She went out on stage and she got judged with everybody else. Why is it fair for everybody else to allow you to come on stage now? Because you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Take some accountability for yourself. Make sure you are where you need to be. And a lot of times people will ask you, hey, do you know when figure is going on? Or do you know where bikini is going on? You can't give you a number. Some shows will run a little bit slower than expected. Some shows will run a little bit quicker than expected. So you can't say, oh, for a fact, bikini will start at 11 a.m. You just don't know. You don't know. Be prepped, be ready, do your part, right? You do your part and the show will be a lot more smooth, right? If everybody kind of plays their role, it will be efficient and it will be a great experience.
Well, you have one job on show day is to show up on stage. So you should be paying attention to that. I mean, we talked all about this, you know, it's a fun time to socialize and get to know people, but you do still need to pay attention to, you know, I mean, I had the same thing with, you know, I was a swimmer and we had our events when we were at state and we would all be in a cafeteria room, listening to music, reading, talking, or whatever, but they would say it over the speaker. You had to pay attention and be up there for your event. Our coach wouldn't come and find us or anything. It's like, no, you have to show up. And this was as a child already that I was like taught to be paying attention, to show up on time, because nobody else is going to, they don't care if you show up or not, you know, and you went through all the.
Yes. It's not fair for everybody else that was doing what they needed to do, you know, be where you need to be. It's important.
I want to talk about music because I think this is like something that I don't know how things work now, but we always used to have a CD and we had to specifically, like I would go to, what's it called? Fee at the mall, the FYE store and burn something off. So what do they do now for your music and what is some of the criteria for that?
Yeah, so the nice thing is most promoters now and within the NPC and IFBB are using what's called muscleware. It's a great program, super user friendly, and that's for everybody, from the competitors, for the expediters, for the promoters, and you can submit your music directly once you register for the show. However, I will always tell people to plan ahead, right? Plan for success, right? Plan for the absolute worst case scenario. So if you do submit your music online, I would always bring a backup, whether it's a CD or a drive. Always bring a flash drive to check-ins, right? Make sure that they have your music because things happen. Things truly do happen. Your music could get lost or whatever the case may be. And if that does happen, they're going to play house music for you. And I'm not saying it's not somewhat of a bummer, you know, but nobody wants that to happen. So just plan accordingly, bring your flash drive and make sure you give it to somebody just to make sure that they do have it, right? Always be prepared, always. So like I said, you can submit it online now in a lot of different cases, but I would always bring it to check-ins, you know, the night of, or sorry, not the day before it, athlete check-ins.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. What else we got?
I think talking about divisions, shows nowadays, there's so many different options in terms of you can do some shows offer true novice and novice, open classes and masters divisions.
Yes.
A lot of times you'll see people doing all of them, right? And basically, and there could be like different, I think I've seen some places where it's called like junior novice or true novice. And true novice is essentially, it's your first show that you've ever competed in, right? So it's like day one. And I'll tell you, if it is your first show that you've ever competed in, I would take advantage of that true novice division because typically your true novice divisions are going to go up first. So if you are nervous and like a disaster and you're about to go out on stage, work through those kinks on that time, because chances are the next go around when you're on stage again for maybe your open class, you're gonna feel so much better. You know, you've already gone on stage, you kind of know what the experience is going to be like. So the next go around, you're going to feel a lot better. You'll be a little bit more comfortable, a little less nervous. You might not be shaking on stage. So I will tell people to cross over. And once you do that true novice division, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. You can't do true novice again, you know, because you're no longer a true novice competitor. Now you have novice as well, which basically the rule is that you can never have won that class, right? So once you win, you're no longer a novice competitor. And then obviously you have your open divisions, which will typically be your most competitive divisions. And that's what's going to qualify you for the national level, right? So those are typically your most competitive divisions. And then masters classes are offered, and, you know, it'll vary from show to show. You might have a masters 35 and up, a masters 40 and up, masters 45 and up, you know, and you'll see some people doing all of them. Right? Just more stage time. Yes, it's more money, but it's more stage time. So if you want to get up there and make the most, go ahead, do them all.
This is what I say to people too. It's like it's usually, I don't know, what is it, like $50? What does it usually cost for every category?
So now it kind of seems like it's changed a little bit. And this could vary show to show, but from what I've seen, I would be prepped to spend $100 for your entry fee. And then some shows might do something where, like, okay, your first initial entry is 100, and then maybe each additional class that you add will be at a cheaper rate, you know? But yeah, I mean, you are going to spend some money when it comes to that. But like I said, if you have dieted down and you have a long list of friends and family coming to cheer you on and show some support, don't skip out. I would save some money here and there to prep for the expenses that you're going to have come show day, you know? But yeah, you will spend a little bit of money, obviously, on your registration, but crossing over is huge too. You'll see a lot of people crossing over from divisions, right? And I think that's something that's really big, and fairly common. And I think that it should be discussed is, you know, if you're a competitor that you're not really sure where you sit, whether you might be figure, you might be women's physique, but you're not real sure, do both of them. Do both of them, get the feedback from the judges. They'll kind of help you, lead you in the right direction. And here's the thing too, you might go on stage and just feel like you mesh better with one. So like if you go on stage for figure and you're like, I don't know about these heels, and you go on for women's physique and you're like, man, this is the division I want to be in. Okay, then you can kind of have an idea, you know, in the same regard, like maybe you prefer figure, but you're a little bit too muscular, too conditioned, right? So you do better in women's physique. You can tone it down if you feel like you want to go figure, you know, you can, if that's something that you want to do. Otherwise, you can continue to grow and do what your body wants and do well, you know, in physique. So I will always recommend crossing over to people too.
Yeah. So you have when you're signing, this is what I want to talk about, filling out this form. So you have you're registering for the show, which will cost anywhere from 150 to, I mean, all the way up, because some of the national level shows, it's like 450 or something, I think.
Yeah, for an entry,
yeah. So you always want to do the open, because that's going to be the most competitive class. If you're a true novice, if you have never ever competed before, you definitely want to do that. Like you said, Brooke, that will be your first stepping up on stage and allow you to just get the nerves out. And if you have never run this class before, then you want to do that true novice as well, or do the novice as well. You can decide if you fit into the master's categories at all, and you could pay a fee for each one of those if you wanted to do that. And then there's the additional fees if you're, let's say, competing in figure and you also want to try giving women's physique a try. So this would be something to talk to your coach about, but also, I mean, just listen to, you know, what you said, Brooke. I think that's really good advice, and you can decide how much money you want to spend, how many categories that you want to compete in. If you know that you're like, maybe this isn't it's not your first time and you're looking really good, then you can pick some of those upper categories of open, maybe a crossover. You know, if it's your first time, maybe go with the minimum of doing the true novice
Mhm.
and open or something like that. So it's totally your choice, but there's a lot of options. And the more practice that you get, the better the experience is going to be, for sure.
Yeah, stage time is always going to benefit you. Even if you go on stage and maybe you don't do your best and you kind of mess up your routine a little bit, it's only going to benefit you. So if you are in a position where you can cross over, that's always a good option for you. It's just more stage time. You know, and be mindful, if your goal is to compete at the national level, I would do as many classes as you can at these lower level shows, because at the national level, you know, there's not novice divisions and there's only masters divisions at some national level shows, not all. So at the national level, you're going to compete probably for the most part in one class, in an open class, unless you're at a national level that is offering masters division, or they will allow crossovers, you know. And even at that point, if you're doing figure and women's physique, you're still only able to do two classes, which are different posing, you know, sequences, things like that. So I would take advantage of it. Try to get as much experience as you can if you are looking to go on to that national level, especially, you know. It's huge. It's only going to benefit you, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say something else about posing, and now I forgot what it was, but that happens sometimes.
Girl, it happens to me like every day. I one thing I do want to say, and I think it's more intimidating for people is, and I get it, I mean, I totally understand, is people want to travel and they want to kind of get away from like a local show for them, because maybe they're kind of like struggling with how they look, or they don't want to get in front of people that they know, and it might just be easier for them to travel elsewhere. And I'm not saying don't do that, but make sure you're supporting your local shows too. You know, at the end of the day, we all want our areas to thrive and do better. So those areas won't thrive and do better unless you're there kind of like helping push them and promote them. So I'm in the state of Arkansas, and obviously you compare the state of Arkansas to like a state like Texas, and fitness is, you know, we're not as big as, you know, the state of Texas is. But I think it's important, you know, like I started at the Arkansas State Show, you know, and that's kind of like, I'm proud of that. You know, it wasn't a huge show by any means, and it's not a huge show still to this day, but I'm proud that that's kind of like where my roots are, you know. So support your local shows as well.
Yeah. I remembered what I was going to say about, I wanted to talk a little bit about practicing posing, because I think that people can get really caught up in watching themselves in a mirror, and that mirror is not there when you when you step on stage. So, you know, when I would work with posing clients, a lot of times, you know, we would do stuff looking in the mirror, or I would be standing, you know, there's different levels of adding a level of discomfort that's going to make it much more like it is on stage. And I would stand behind them and have them do their practicing. And then I would stand right in front of them and just be staring at them, because it's like, I'm a judge. You want to be staring at the judges and looking at them and smiling at them, and occasionally looking into the audience to try to connect with some of the audience members. But then we would a lot of times turn around so that they're just looking at the wall. And I'm like, now you have to know what you're doing without looking at yourself in the mirror, which is night and day difference.
It is. It is. You know, and that is so true. Use the mirror as a measurement, but also eliminate that mirror, you know, and just like you said, come show day, there's not going to be a mirror in front of you. So you're going purely based off of how you feel. So be mindful of that. Whenever you're posing, take into consideration, okay, I'm hitting my rear pose. Does my lower back feel like it's about to like die, cramp up, lock up, whatever? Yes. You know what I mean? I will always tell people, act like you're trying to fold your body in half, you know? So whenever I'm posing on stage, I'm being mindful. Like if I'm not feeling that sensation, I'm probably not hitting it like I should. You know what I mean? So just be mindful of those things. Set up your camera and prop it at a lower angle where your judges are, right? Kind of get the viewpoint from where the judges are standing or seated, because, you know, they're lower than you. So they're going to kind of be looking up at you, and prop up your camera and record yourself. You can't do that too many times. You know what I mean? So practice is what is going to make you better. You know, you will see things that look good. You're going to see things that don't look so good, and be mindful. There's a group of judges that is like 5 to 7 people on a panel, and they're going to judge you. So it doesn't matter what your mom says, what your best friend says. What matters is what that judging panel says. You know what I mean? So be mindful of that, be realistic. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have people that are there to support you. Everybody thinks you should win. Gosh, everybody that, like, all my good friends, my family, they always think that I should win. You know what I mean? And I love them for that. But, you know, obviously there's times where, no, I should not have won. You know what I mean?
Well, Brooke, that is such a great segue to talk about sportsmanship a little bit, because, you know, there are things that people do that should never be done post show. You know, it's hard to hide your disappointment if you didn't get where you thought you wanted to be, or if you had so many people backing you. Just remember, like you said, this is more emotional support. It's not actual critical support that actually means something, because these people aren't judging the show. Judges are. So, you know, some of the things that I have seen or experienced in the past is, you know, poor sportsmanship on stage. Judges remember this. You know, you're leaving an impression here. So be a gracious loser and congratulate the winner. You can talk to your coach afterwards about, you know, if that person, you know, you think deserved to win, or what you can do to look better next time. You can talk to the judges about why you placed where you placed, or what you need to improve. They will give you honest feedback either at the show. I think a lot of times people too don't stick around to talk to the judges, which I think is super important, because they want to get off and celebrate with their families and go eat food. But if you have an opportunity to stand in line and talk to judges afterwards and have them tell you how you did at your show, it's like you said, everything about this day is about getting the most out of this day. And a week from now, it's not going to matter as much to you. Or now you got to email a judge, and now they have to go through pictures and try to remember who you were and everything else. So take advantage of that day, get feedback from the judges. I would say don't post stuff online that degrades or compares yourself to other competitors, unless you're posting the comparison photos. Don't be splicing and putting photos together with you and the person who won first, asking your followers who should have won or something like that. You know, these are all different levels of poor sportsmanship, and it just makes you look bad. It makes the sport look bad. Yeah, just be careful about what you say and what you do post show. So
and here's the thing, most people, I can assure you, have been in a situation where maybe they felt like they should have placed better. Absolutely. I think we all can sit there and say, yeah, there's times where maybe I thought I should have done a little bit better than what I did. There's been times where I might watch a show and I'm like, I might prefer this physique over that one. You know what I mean? And it happens. But in no regard should you ever display poor sportsmanship where you were not congratulating a winner. And you know what? If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. You know what I mean? Because people do remember that. And I will tell you, it doesn't leave a good taste. You know what I mean? You remember those things. And here's the thing, I will remember somebody having a poor attitude more so than I will remembering that they had an awesome physique. You know what I mean? So, and nobody likes that. People like a humble champion too, you know, so remain humble, you know. And here's something too, and this happens often. If you were upset, again, we've all been in a situation where we thought we could have done it better, came in better, maybe we should have placed better, whatever the case was. After prejudging, if you don't come back for finals, you know what I mean? And that is truly against the rules. You know, you should always come back for finals, unless they're specified that it's like top 5 and they'll go over that with you. But you are required to be there for finals unless there is a medical issue and you can notify the promoter of that issue. But that looks so terrible on your part. I mean, it truly does. If you got second place and you felt like you should have gotten first and you're like, I'm just not going to go back to finals, That's awful. That really is awful. And I see this happen. I see it happen with people that are actually trainers. So to me, I'm like, you should lead by example. You're coaching athletes and you're telling them that it's okay to go and compete, but they've been out of shape because they didn't do well. So just don't show up.
Yeah. Well,
it's not professional.
You finish what you started, right? And we've seen this too with people who, I mean, here's what people are trying to avoid, right? Because you see people, especially I've seen this a lot in the men's open division, where people will show up and it's like maybe they had to travel from, the UK or someplace else, and they show up on stage and somebody's like, oh my gosh, they look like a water buffalo, or they're holding so much water or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but they were contracted to do the show and they showed up and they did the best that they could with the situation. You can't always control all those variables. So yeah, I mean, sportsmanship goes a long way. And, like you said, Brooke, I think a lot of times people get caught up in someone's personality and they're like, well, I don't like that person, so they don't deserve to place, or,
I know.
or, I mean, we've had this with past, like, Olympias and stuff where you're just like, well, I don't want this person, I really like Kai Green. He should have won Mr. Olympia. It's like, you're not being judged on your personality. You're 100%. Not being judged on, how strong you are or how big of a social media following you have. As much as people will throw politics into the mix, I don't think that's really, the judges know what they're doing. They know the criteria that they're supposed to be judging people on, and they're not biased in that manner. So walk away from that knowing that you didn't bring what they wanted to see, that somebody looks better than you. Figure out maybe from them what they want you to improve on, and you go back to the drawing board. This is why this sport is brutal. It's tough. You're never perfect. And you can, and that is drilled home all the time. And this is why, you get people who are in bodybuilding have a really strong mindset of always trying to improve. I mean, it's always, it's just the characteristic of the sport. It bleeds into every aspect of your life as well. And good or bad, that's the type of people that get drawn into this sport. So if you think that you're going to just rise to the top in a year, I know I've interviewed people on this podcast who have had ridiculous rises to the top in a very short amount of time. But if you think of the thousands of competitors who are clawing their way every year to put on two more pounds of muscle, that's most people. That's most people. Yeah, absolutely.
There's always going to be an exception, always. But right. For the most part, just like you said, most people will not be able to achieve that. So judge your progress by your progress, not anybody else.
Brooke, you're such a perfect example of this. I mean, how many years did it take you to get your pro card?
Gosh, it took me.
Or then qualify for Olympia too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was crazy. So the last show that I won was 2015. It was when I turned pro. And so 2016 I didn't win, 2017 I didn't win, 2018, 19, and 20 I didn't compete, and then 22 I finally won. I got a lot of disappointing second places, and it was hard, and there was times, I'm not going to lie and say that there was some times where maybe I didn't agree with a particular call, but I can assure you that when it came down to it, I congratulated that champion, and I walked off stage with my head held high, and I talked to my loved ones, my friends and family, and then whenever I got back to my hotel room, I might've cried a little bit, you know what I mean? But there's a time and place for that. I'm never going, it is what it is. And there was a lot of frustrating moments within that time frame, but my progress is my progress. And I'm so proud of it now. I didn't quit. And there's a lot of times I wanted to quit. I promise you, I thought year after year, should I just hang it up and walk away? Am I good enough? Do I deserve to be on the Olympia stage? I mean, so many different times. And there's people that go in and they might turn pro their first national level show, and they might go on and they might win their pro debut, and they're like that, they're on the Olympia stage. That didn't happen for me, and it does happen for some. and it is what it is. And I'm not saying, here's the thing, I'm grateful for my journey because it's my journey. And looking back, seeing everything that I went through and everything that I had to overcome to get to this point, I would do it every single time. Same exact way. So my path is my path, and that's what makes it so awesome, you know?
Well, here's the thing. What I love about you is that you have always been true to yourself and what you're willing to do and what you wanted the look to look like. And it's like, I'm going to keep presenting the look that I love according to the criteria that they have wanted of me. And hopefully they're going to recognize that this is what I think women's physique should look like.
100%.
Yeah. And you've always been true to yourself. And that's what finally happened. It's like, nope, we want her up there. And
yeah, like giving me goosebumps.
I know, and making me cry because I just know like everything that you went through in order to get there. And, you know, I've said this before, but your stage presence at the Olympia, like I cried watching it because I was like, she belongs there and is so happy to be up there and worked so hard to get there after everything, you know, it was unreal.
Yeah. You know, it was a long journey, but, and I know I've told you this before, but whenever I was on the Olympia stage, that person, that happy person that you saw, that was real. It was all genuine feelings. And it doesn't matter. I'm so grateful that I placed well, 100%. I'm so grateful about that. But I told myself going into the Olympia that I didn't know if it was going to be my first or my last Olympia. I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm retiring by any means, but you just never know, you know. I didn't know where I was going to place. I didn't know what I was going to look like next to Sarah, the best in the world, you know. So I told myself I was going to have the time of my life. And I did. I loved every minute of it. It's amazing. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to step on that stage. I can only hope that this year, when I do again, I top it.
Yeah.
No pressure, right? But it was amazing. And that's what I always tell people, like, enjoy the experience, enjoy it. You know, you don't know if this is your first and last time. You don't know how far you're going to take it, you know? So go up there and have fun, make memories. If there's one thing that I can tell you about bodybuilding, I love bodybuilding, not so much because of all the shows that I've done and the victories that I've had and whatever the losses that I've had. It's the people that I've met, you know, the relationships that I've had because I've competed. You know what I mean? I've built a lot of long-lasting friendships that I would have never had I not chosen to compete, you know? I'm forever grateful for that. Bodybuilding has given me so many different opportunities, and I will tell you, I am thankful for that every single day. Every single day I am.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think sometimes when I'm sitting here, I'm like, I have friends all over the country. I really wish that, like, Brooke and I would be going to a movie right now if I lived closer to her.
That's so true, you know, and like, I'm so grateful for our friendship. I think when we first met, we just clicked, you know, but that would have never happened had I never competed. You know, had we never had bodybuilding, that relationship would have never been established. And I'm so grateful that it did happen, you know?
Yeah, I am too. And it just lets you know that there's a lot of really, really great, hardworking people out there who are just the same as all of us, trying to, you know, achieve a dream. And it's a privilege that so many of them, like you, are sharing this stuff on social media and, you know, on the podcast for us all. So it's such a great thing for, you know, the listeners to learn from and grow from. So
yes.
Yeah, very cool. Oh, I'm sure we missed something. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you think, you know, I guess, you know, I would quickly touch on being really careful about some of the things that your coach could ask you to do, that leads into peak week or show day. And I think I'll just generically sum it up and say, like, you should be ready, and you shouldn't have to do anything that's life-threatening or dangerous the last week or the day of the show in order to look good on stage. We've had a lot of we've had a lot of deaths and injuries and things like that in the last couple of years. And I think there's been some crazy protocols, and, you know, that shouldn't even be something that, especially at a beginner's level, that you should be delving into or worrying about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always be mindful of your health, always. And if there's something that is really putting you at an elevated risk and it could be detrimental to your health, take a step back and look at it, you know, because I love bodybuilding. I love it. And I'm, like I just said, I'm very grateful, but at the end of the day, you have to keep your health in mind. Is it worth cutting years off of your life? Or is it worth at that given moment, maybe killing yourself, you know? No. So just be mindful of that. And absolutely, you should be, peak week should be a breeze. You should be ready.
They're not even like, people are not even cutting water anymore. You know what I mean? So this whole dehydration thing that used to be such a big deal, we realize now that your muscles need water in order for the carbohydrates to, the glucose to get into the muscle from the carbohydrates. So if you start cutting water, yes, it gets rid of the water between the muscle and the skin, but it also gets rid of the water in the muscle, and, you know, you look flat. This is why during those last couple of weeks when, you know, you feel like you look so skinny, it's because you're so flat, because carbs are probably low. It's not enough to get into the muscle. It's not enough to give you a pump, and you look skinny, and you won't look good until that last bit of fat comes off and you can plump up the muscle again with carbohydrates and water. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's pretty, oh, we were going to talk about the Pittsburgh Pro.
I know, we didn't even cover that, did we?
You know what? I think that we will, we've been talking for a long time, and I think, you know, I just want to wrap this. I want to wrap, let me see if I can find, I am going to find, this was so good, and it was relevant to, so today is Mother's Day, and I'm super excited about being a mom. Let me see here. Where am I going?
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I wanted to search Meg because she had this post about bodybuilding, but I felt like it was it this one? Nope. We're going to go over one more. Oh, you know, I'm not going to be able to, I'll read it on my phone instead. Talk amongst yourselves. We're like, oh, come on. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to put on dramatic glasses, read.
Hey, that's good. I love it.
That's right. Okay. All right. She wrote, I think we're all married to the idea, if you want to see good progress, choosing something you will enjoy will yield the greatest results. I think this is really true. Like the things you choose to eat on your plan, the way in which you like to train, if you enjoy it, it'll reduce stressors and cortisol, which will keep us progressing for sure. You will have to do things you don't like as a bodybuilder. I hate training my glutes and hams, but this is an area that I need to bring up. So this means I have to put more focus into the parts I don't particularly enjoy the most. There will be many tasks you have to do that you don't like to progress, to reach your true potential and make necessary improvements for your physique. As Mike Tyson said, discipline is about doing the stuff you hate like you love it. Reaching your true potential will mean you have to do an awful lot of things you don't enjoy or want to do, and that's the difference between who wins and who doesn't. And then I was going to say, I responded to this saying, life is full of doing things we don't enjoy, but must do in order to survive, thrive, progress, and succeed. There's a right or better path to many goals, and I agree with you 100%. People need to evaluate how important a particular goal is and the time and effort they're willing to put towards it to get there. but also to recognize that a more difficult, correct path creates characteristics through the regimented struggle that will build a stronger you. Resistance is a blessing. Persistence through struggle makes you so strong for every aspect of life. Too many people want to take the easiest route, and often it leads to stagnancy, quitting, or fading away. And I wanted to share that because it's not just about bodybuilding, it's about life.
100%.
And we, everybody wants to take the easy way out. I feel like it's the same with parenting. So whatever you are passionate about, you really have to make sacrifices for. You have to do the hard thing, and you have to put a lot of effort into it. If it's important to you, you want to put your best towards that thing. And we can't put 100%, or like I think you said before, 100% looks different sometimes, and it's a sort of a harmony of putting a lot of effort towards this when we have time to, and this when we have time to. But, I think why so many of us got into this sport is because of the type of people that we are. We love this arduous journey that is going to take a long time, because it builds character in ourselves, and that bleeds into every aspect of our life of putting 100% and a lot of effort towards the things that we love. So
that was so perfect.
So if you get involved in this sport, know that it's going to change you. And I think a lot of us have grown and learned, and just, we love it so much because of the sport. So yeah, it's a beautiful
for sure.
thing. Don't rush it, right?
Yeah, do not rush it. Take your time.
Yeah. So I think we could probably cover some of the other, there's going to be a lot of shows this summer, but if you guys go to NPC News Online or follow Pittsburgh Pro is such a great show.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's almost like just a step down from like an Olympia or an Arnold at this point, because one of the greatest things that they have at that show is the guys that come and do I don't know if some of the women do it too, but they have a ton of pros that fly out to this show that are not necessarily contest ready, and they get all the guys on the stage, and they're wearing all different levels of trunks, whatever they're comfortable with. They go out into the audience, they do a big pose down, they like sort of a big, huge guest posing. It's a great show to go to if you've never been to, if you want to watch something that's on a little bit more of the professional level. It's such a great show.
It is an awesome show. And it is so prestigious at this point. Every class is always so stacked. So yeah. The wellness category, I know I saw wellness. I know I saw bikini for sure. I did see the women's physique as well. Yeah. Did they have figure? I don't think I saw the figure. Yeah, they had figure, classic, and men's physique. Okay. Yeah. And it was pretty, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of like original individuals that came back, which is really inspiring for me personally, because the sport evolves so much in each division. Sometimes you worry if you're like, is it going to pass me by? So it's kind of nice to see some people get in there. Sadiq got in men's physique, and he's been out for a while and he won. So that's really inspiring. You see Janet, she came back, obviously. And then India, she came back in bikini, and she's actually right there in the mix. So it's really awesome to see. It's very refreshing. This goes back to that phrase that people talk about, the stage will always be there. Wherever life takes you, if you are a bodybuilder, you will always be a bodybuilder. That will always be in you. So you can step away to have children like India did, or just take a year off or more like Janet did. I don't know exactly what was going on with Sadiq, but one of the things I love about him is he's got the legs, even though even though it's men's physique, and they can wear different levels of like fit of shorts, and he's got tight board shorts on because he's like, I got the legs, dude. I got this. You can rock them. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be talking more about the shows that are going on over the summer in upcoming episodes. So we'll make sure. But and also our girl Kass got second. So she moved up big time. Yes, for sure. So all right. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Always great seeing you. And next weekend you have
Junior USA.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It'll be awesome. And so many of the shows are online now too. So even if you can't make it, it's like, I don't know, $40, $60, $25. I mean, they vary greatly, but it's such a small price to say to pay to see everything very well. Like
absolutely, you can view the whole event.
Yes, and it can be better than sitting there because you're right up front with the cameras. So I would say invest in that also a time or two, especially with some of the bigger shows like the Olympia or the Arnold. But yeah, very awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening and watching. Of course, you guys can find us on Instagram. Brooke is Walker. What is your Instagram now? I think it's
Walker Brooke.
It's Walker Brooke. Yep. You can find me on Instagram at buffcake22. Follow the podcast at The Women's Fittest. Go ahead and leave us those 5-star and written reviews. You can also find us on YouTube, a little small following there under Buffcake22. And to remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day.
Woo!
Woo!